The primary thing that we did was remove both me and my son from the home.
When you're doing this, what does that do to the spirit?
It's crushing the spirit, of course.
Daniela is a civil rights leader who is a liaison for creating opportunities for affordable housing, workplace and career development matters, and also an activist for women and community efforts. Sandrell is a Miami native, a former banker, and current entrepreneur who transitioned into the world of real estate. She has been in the real estate agency for over 10 years. She is currently working in the South Florida market as an agent and MLO. Her specialty is working with homeowners of distressed properties and educating the community about real estate.
Good day, qualifiers. As we mentioned, you have an idea of the guests that we have today. I am so elated and humbled to be discussing this issue that we have. Listen, we all know that we experienced a tremendous deal of changes as a result of the pandemic. And many people have asked me, hey, Dr. G, they're asking me, George, what is your perspective? How do you feel the economy is as of right now? I had no choice but to invite these wonderful women who are well-equipped, they're knowledgeable, and not only are they knowledgeable, they have the credentials and education to substantiate who they are and what it is that they bring to the table. And I'm going to start with none other than with Miss Sandrell. As you all heard earlier of her credentials, and you all already are privy to Miss Pierre, who's been on our show before, and both of these young, wonderful women will be on our show for future episodes. But we're going to talk about real estate. We do understand that many people are questioning whether or not it's a buyer's market. What is going on? And if I may ask you, Sandra, can you give us an idea? What is the current home buyers market forecast as of today?
Honestly, right now for buyers, it's a bit of a tough market because inventory is very low.
Wow.
So it's a situation where you are, it's just not plentiful. So you're kind of having to, in some cases, settle for maybe less than you had envisioned.
Wow.
Or put out more, to really kind of fight for ownership at this point.
Wow. And I do know that at one point, when I spoke with Ms. Pierre concerning you, you were an actual real estate agent, but now you're also an MLO.
Yeah.
And I'll allow you to provide more and elucidate more on that. Can you give us more insight on, from that perspective, what you're seeing, like also behind the scenes, as to why you conclude that it is in the buyer's market?
Okay, so it's not a buyer's market because inventory, plain out, flat and simple. There's just not enough inventory to go around, not enough inventory for people to really be selective about, where they want to be, their dream type of home, their dream neighborhood. So that is why it's a buyer's market. In terms of working on the lending side, what you're seeing is a lot more people coming together to purchase. So whereas there normally could have been one purchaser or a husband and wife, or just a couple, you're seeing them bring in other family members. You're seeing them bring in mother-in-laws and cousins and, people that can help them really make a purchase happen. Wow. Versus, two families being out there as renters. They're coming together to purchase on the lending side. That's what I'm seeing. Wow. Also on the real estate side, when you're reviewing offers now, you're seeing offers with 3 or 4 people that are attached to them because, people are just coming together to make purchases happen.
Wow. So it has tremendously changed. And, many of us have had experiences where we had to experience foreclosure, losing our homes. Ms. Pierre, if you can, I know you've had some shares of your own. If you could provide some insight and even a testimony of what you've experienced personally that you feel our viewers could benefit from, please do share at this moment, because I know with your experience, especially in the county that you're in, the municipality that you're a part of, all that you invest and advocate for people who are searching for homes and so forth. Please provide more insight based on your experience, what you're experiencing at this time as well.
Excellent question, and thank you so much for having me on this panel. Just to piggyback off of what Sandrell just mentioned, I would agree. There's definitely a lack of inventory, a lack of availability, and most importantly, a lack of affordability.
Wow.
Comes to getting into the home ownership market. I will share a bit of my story of how I got into the housing space. I was a homeowner back at the top of the market crashing. I purchased a brand new home, and shortly thereafter, I actually was laid off from my full-time job of 11 years.
Wow.
So I ended up losing my home, but before I lost my home, I did all that I could to try to save it. Loan modification after loan modification. And what's that? A loan modification is trying to kind of rework your loan so it can go into a more affordable rate. Back in like 2006 or so, you were able to get loans like all over the place.
Right.
You was income, you would get this, 24 months at this rate, and then month 25, your mortgage would, take a different turn.
Right.
So I kind of got caught up in that some years ago, getting into the home ownership world and experience. So I'm always grateful to have experienced realtors such as Sandrell and many others to help guide us through the home ownership space. Since losing my home, I became an affordable housing advocate. And what that means is I was having a hard time, even after, finding employment, even after having a college degree,
right.
I was still being priced out of the rental space.
Wow.
Because I kept sharing my story about how it was just not easy to rent anywhere, I came in contact with fellow employees, fellow colleagues, and just fellow neighbors who have been dealing with the upside down of being priced out of the rental market. So from losing my home, that is what compelled me to turn into affordable housing advocate, where I advocate for housing affordability, availability, and accessibility for all people. I want to make certain that housing is fair and accessible for all. So what I do is a lot of storytelling, highlight a lot of the laws and policies that are keeping us bound.
Wow.
Hopefully by raising that awareness, we will get the political will by those we put in office to do better when it comes to housing. So that's what I've been doing over the years. And as an affordable housing advocate, we meet a lot of people along the way. It's not an overnight process.
Absolutely not. Mm-hmm.
Buying a home takes a while, but so is changing policy. So that's what I've been doing over the years since losing my home as an affordable housing advocate.
Very good, very good. And I appreciate you mentioning a few things that we will be discussing momentarily, especially when you talk about fairness for all. And I definitely want to tackle that criterion momentarily. And as you all know, this is voting season. Congress, time to vote. These are the people, as mentioned, that will get these laws changed in your local municipalities that you need in office. So we do want to put a sidebar out there for folks to vote for the right people, especially who have your best interests. You both said something profound about the economy, how it affected you. There has been a huge rumor, and Sandra, I know you can elucidate more on that as well as Daniela, of a huge crash that should or may take place in our economy. The reality is, should it raise interest for home buyers at that point in time? Will it provide more opportunities due to foreclosure or people losing their homes? What do you think ultimately is going to happen if there is a crash? And have you all heard of this crash? And do you think it is going to take place? If so?
It actually depends on who you ask. I happen to be really close to the banking and real estate industry during the last crash, and it was kind of hard for regular people to wrap their mind around what was going on, because everything was being done behind the scenes. All the strings were being pulled for us, and we didn't have any knowledge of what was coming ahead of us. But then I think today we're all more knowledgeable, just as regular citizens. And so depending on who you ask about this crash, that's going to depend on what answer you get. But as a real estate professional, I don't see that it's going to be this huge crash, right? I think that what's happening right now is a situation where you have the availability of housing has driven up the cost because people are willing to pay more. So, and if you compare that to the crash in 2008, during that time,
right,
those strings were being pulled by someone else. There were people inflating prices. There were people making backdoor deals, betting against homeowners. And not only were they betting against homeowners, they were setting this trap, right? So it was really all an inside type of thing where you knew what was going to happen because you created it to happen that way. So in this situation, the pandemic kind of is what really made this take place the way that it is. So it wasn't something that was man-made, cooked up, with investors and whoever else were the people pulling the strings before. And you don't have a situation where you have appraisers that are being kind of given handshakes and backdoor deals saying, hey, I need this property to appraise for this much. What you have is the people being in control of the prices of the market. Although it's not everyone, it's the people with money. The people with money are paying more. They're paying what they can afford for properties, and some of them have the extra money, the liquid cash. So you have the people that are actually driving up the prices in this case. So it's not a man-made, cooked up backdoor,
as it was before.
Banker, exactly like it was before. So I don't necessarily see that it's going to be a crash.
Okay.
What I believe is going to happen, I'm not an economist by any stretch of the imagination, but what I believe is going to happen is that you're going to see things even out, so I do believe that as more inventory hits the market, and a lot of that is going to be through foreclosure, unfortunately. A lot of that is going to be through foreclosure. So when you see some of those properties start to hit the market, and you see people rebounding, getting back on their feet from the pandemic, their health is improving. Some people were sick. There was a number of reasons a lot of people aren't selling right now.
Right.
So as you start to see people health improve, or you see people not being afraid to sell anymore, because a lot of the people that are selling right now are elderly people that are ready to transition into their retirement living. So they're selling these larger houses that their children aren't coming back to anymore. And they're moving out the way to go into retirement communities and, sleepy towns. So you see a lot of those people that are not afraid anymore because, the elderly was going to be or have been greatly impacted by the pandemic. And they were being told first and foremost, to shield themselves and be careful. So you saw a lot of that activity stop because people didn't want to risk their health. So there was a number of reasons that the situation happened the way that it did. And now that you see these things kind of getting back to normal, where they were before, you're going to see people pick up to where they left off with those plans to move, to sell those larger homes. You're going to see people who are rebounding in their employment, that are working from home, that can live anywhere they want to live, because of the situation that the pandemic created. So you're just starting to see a lot of things get back to normal. And you're going to see a lot of those people that were frozen, that didn't want to make those moves now. So you're going to see the housing market kind of even out, in my opinion. And as it evens out, yes, you're going to see I don't think it's necessarily going to be value drop, but I think that this craziness that is going on right now, people pricing their properties at the highest of the market, and they haven't even changed the screw or done anything in the property in the last 15, 20 years. You're going to see those properties not go for as high a price as they're going now, because there'll be more inventory. So I think you're just going to see things even out a little bit. and you're going to see things kind of return to normal. Yes, there's going to be an increase in foreclosure, but there's also going to be an increase in people purchasing. There's also going to be an increase in people selling that's not in a distress situation.
Right. And you
so
make
I don't think it's going to be a crash.
Okay, you make a valid point, and I definitely agree with you, and I appreciate your feedback on that, and enlightening. So all of those who are watching, you're hearing it firsthand. We don't anticipate a crash, because I personally work in an area where career services, where I see jobs that are either doing well or are actual employers who are losing employment. So we can actually provide you with the true insight. I don't believe there will be a crash either, because a lot of the areas or a lot of the arenas in the job force, when you're talking about social workers, when you're talking about different areas, when you're talking about housekeeping, a lot of these areas that's, suffered a great deal, they're picking back up tremendously. So the workforce is picking up, the economy will pick up. There will be some, I would say, some economical
casualties.
Right, casualties that may take place, as you mentioned, because people will lose their homes and others will downsize, as you stated. Ms. Pierre, I do believe you mentioned something earlier about fairness, and there's an article that recently came out where I just want to shift gears just a little bit. I know we could go all night with this because this is a real broad conversation. In this particular article, the gentleman stated that he, as a actual real estate agent, had to upsell or increase prices. We now see that prices are increasing just because of the pandemic, but there was a period where they were increasing prices of homes due to the fact that they didn't want a certain demographic in a certain area. In addition to that, one loan officer mentioned, he went as far as even stating that he has trouble getting loans for, and we want to keep it honest and real here, for Blacks, where a process that would take maybe a couple days or a week for a white family, for a Black family, it takes him weeks, months, and even years to get Black families approved for actual loans. So I'm definitely shifting gears with this. I know that this is a topic that we can elucidate on for many years because this has been happening for some time. Can you provide insight on that and what you feel, based on your personal experience, has taken place in that arena, and if that is so?
Excellent question. So I would say, since the beginning of time, there's always been like racial disparities when it comes to housing, home ownership. Just look at it. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 did all that it could to help prohibit future discrimination in housing, but it did not go back and correct all of the ills and those policies that still exist today. So we're going to always have disparities in housing until we once again get the people in the seats with the political will to go back and make those changes.
Right.
Now, the Fair Housing Act takes care of everything for the last 50 years. But prior to that, when the government gave housing to certain veterans and not the Black veterans, when the government made loans to certain people and not other Black people, we didn't have those same advantages when it came into going to the home ownership market. So we've always been, what I would say, behind the eight ball when it came to home ownership. We've always had those challenges. But with the Fair Housing Act of 1968, that helps to prevent future fair housing challenges. But again, it does nothing to help correct and change anything that is still present on the books today that are unfair and unjust housing laws that still exist today. I want to just go back quickly to say, while it may not be a housing crash, coming, but I do believe there's going to be some type of housing reset. I say that because within Miami-Dade County particularly, we have a very, very aging housing stock. And I say that because when you're trying to go and get insurance and stuff for these homes that are like 50, 60, almost 70 years old,
wow,
almost impossible to get an affordable insurance estimate. So while we may not have a housing crash, it may be some type of reset at least when it takes into account, the aging stock of our homes, especially within Miami-Dade County. Many of our homes are still on septic tanks. Many of our homes are not really up to code as much as it should be. And it really is a challenge to try to get insurance to help, insure and safeguard those properties. So if nothing else, we may have additional innovation in housing when it comes to maybe getting a loan or when it comes to insuring our home. That's an area that I think we definitely need to pay close attention to as our homes continue to get older and older. Of course, we have those big developers that come in all the time, Lennar, D.R. Horton, GL Homes, that build new properties, and we appreciate that. But there's some old homes
right
in our communities that when people try to go and sell those homes, not all the time they have the permits. You can't find the permits, and that causes a problem when you're trying to buy a home. And it's not just one home on a block. We have blocks and blocks in Miami-Dade of older homes.
Wow.
With nothing else, I think there's going to be some type of change, at least when it comes to the aging housing stock.
Mm-hmm. And that's a very valid point. And, as we are discussing racial disparity, I would like to hear from you, Sandra. Can you provide some experience that you may have or that you possibly have seen, if so, in that arena of racial disparity, and what you basically experienced has happened with clients in that arena of real estate that you definitely experience and that we definitely need to bring to the forefront to our communities so everyone is cognizant of what's going on?
Woo! That's a big topic, right? And it's a big topic not just because of racism itself, but it's a big topic because it's also about the victims of racism and how we move forward. I think that what I'm seeing in terms of racism and housing, it's more so related to systems that have already been set forth, like Daniela was saying, that there's just this lingering effect, and it's like just a constant domino effect. Right. That today the strings are invisible, right? So all the plans that were set before in the way that it was designed to be invisible eventually, and it is now. So it's easy to look at a people and say, well, you should do this or you should do that, and people are making money now and make all of these assumptions because no one's seeing the strings today. And the people that are calling out the strings are kind of getting ostracized and saying that, that was a long time ago, and right. Not realizing that those strings are still very present, although very invisible in terms of how they operate like well-oiled machines, and it's one that impacts the other, and it's just a building block of situations that are holding people back. So I would say it's such a big topic. You really don't know exactly where to speak on it from, because I can see it in my clients, right? I can see it in, families that don't have a lineage of wealth. I can see it in families that don't have a lineage of higher education.
Right.
You start to see the breakdown more in how difficult it is for people to obtain housing, how difficult it is for people to, and when you say obtain housing, that's a big thing, right? But then when you look at the small details of that, where you don't have parents to give you a gift to come up with your $30,000 or $40,000 that you need to make a purchase, or you don't have a family member that was able to take equity out of their property because of the area that they live in, the value was not there in the area before gentrification, to help the next family member obtain housing. So yes, there are racial disparities. Is it all someone's, a lot of times when we think of racial disparity in something like real estate, you're thinking of this really mean person. You go to get a loan and they just slam the door in your face or something like that. And it doesn't really appear that way now. What it looks like now is you just don't have the lineage. You just don't have what you need from the generation before you. You're a first generation bootstrapping
Yeah.
person that, you know, didn't have the education to make the higher pay to put aside the kind of money that it would take for you to be a homeowner. So yes, there are racial disparities. They look very different for everyone. And yes, I do see it with, you know, a lot of my clientele. I do see it with even clients that aren't mine, you know, in my conversations with other colleagues. In the news, you're still seeing, you know, disparities as far as people having personal biases in how they perform their job, like appraisers especially. You hear the stories on the news, and sometimes they're singled out as one person. But again, just like Daniela said, it's still a system that it's built on, that it comes from, and that, you know, what's reported is not even the tip of the iceberg as far as the disparities. A lot of it we don't even see because it's still so invisible, but clear and present.
And it's crazy because I'm going to share this clip that I'm borrowing. And I'm borrowing this clip. I don't own the rights to it, but I'm going to share this clip, and I want our viewers to view it. It's only 60 seconds. And our viewers, I want you all to take a look at this clip, and we'll provide some more insight and close out, but we can go all night on this because I know people just want to focus on the positive side, but we have to discuss all elements of what everyone is experiencing from all walks of life. So let's share this clip for the next 60 seconds.
The primary thing that we did was remove both me and my son from the home.
When you're doing this, what does that do to the spirit?
It's crushing the spirit, of course. I'm ashamed of it. I'll be honest. I'm ashamed of the fact that my son will see that this is something that I did. I'm ashamed to say that I really wanted to refinance and pay off my house sooner and have full equity in my home. And so I was willing to put up with that indignity to do it because I knew it was going to be effective.
She took down all the photos of her family, replacing them only with photos of her husband and his white family. And he is the person in the home when the new appraiser comes. And when the second appraisal comes back, the value of their house has shot up more than $100,000, a 40% increase.
Now that you both have witnessed this clip, how do you recommend home buyers, like say for instance, myself, I'm a homeowner. I just purchased my home and this is an investment. This is our investment. This is for our babies. This is a legacy we're putting together for our babies. As you mentioned, Sandra, some of us are first-time home buyers, first-time home owners. We're new to this. We had to work from the ground up. We didn't have anybody handed down to us. We weren't beneficiaries of anything. How do you recommend in these cases watching this? Because the young lady mentioned how she had to put her husband's pictures up and his white family so they could, when the appraisers came in, they were able to get a 40% increase, which was the actual worth of the home. But if the blacks, which was his wife and we could say a half-breed son, were seen, it would be reduced down to 300,000, which is definitely a shame and is below value. How do you recommend we protect our investments?
Well, I think by any means necessary, exactly the way that the young lady did, you do what you have to do, because you're not going to change the system, you know, not in your one situation. You're not going to change the system, and you're not, and it's hard to even say a system, right? Because when you look at something like appraisals, it's built on a uniform standard. Wow. It's sometimes the bias the actual person carries. It's not necessarily the system. Sometimes, you know, it's the system, depending on how your neighborhood is coded, depending on your zip code, you know, all those things that were, again, set in place long before, you know, we had any, you know, ability to change it. So moving forward, it has been changed. It's not loud and screaming in your face that you're being redlined, that you're being, you know, targeted, but it's also not something you can change because of it's already there. That system is already built. So I suggest that anyone protect their investments by any means necessary. If you have to get someone to, you know, play homeowner, then you do that. Because
it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because my cousin who lives in New York, for him to open his business, he hired a Caucasian business partner because the business is in Long Island. So whenever the lenders, whenever other business partners he wanted to get affiliated with or to get a loan from any lender, as I mentioned, he sent the partner that he hired, who was a Caucasian, who was a white man, to represent the business. And it was all my cousin's business, who's a black man. So these are the things that are, and you know, some people may disagree with what you said about doing whatever necessary, but if a system already is established and exists, you can't change it overnight. However, we can discuss momentarily other opportunities or what should start to begin or what should begin to occur. But these are the things that are currently happening, and we have to do whatever it takes to protect our investments. And I definitely agree with you from that aspect. Miss Pierre, what's your take on that before we go back? Because I do believe that Sandra has a lot that she wants to say, and I want both of you to provide some more insight momentarily. But what is your take on how to protect your investment?
You always want to safeguard whatever that investment is that belongs to you. But we have to really, really come together and hold people accountable. So I would say when it comes to appraisers, yes, there is a uniform guide in place, but we have to look at who sits on that appraisers board and who do they report to.
Right.
The last time I checked, it wasn't too many of us on the appraisers board. So that could be a reason why they may be unfamiliar with the territory in many of our communities. So we have to make certain that whoever is going to come in our community or whatever community, that they should have a diverse board, you know, diverse in skill set as well as representation.
Good.
I mean, yes, we can play the game to protect our investment, and we should do that. But when that's becoming a common theme that we have to do that, that's a problem. Right. Because individually, we are protecting what's ours, but on a collective whole, are we really moving forward? So we have to be able to, you know, hold people accountable. And if that starts at the appraisers board, if that starts at the tax collector's office, wherever those agencies fall, we have to unite, join forces, and hold those people accountable, if for nothing else, but to have a fair representation on those boards. Fair representation, hopefully be able to help us when it comes to protecting our investment. Because our investment, yes, is what's ours, but our investment is also the community as a whole too.
Very good. So we can say Sandrell is step one. Sandrell is step one. We get in there, protect our investment by any means. Because you have to know how to play the system, like we always used to say, and we still say. After you now get your investment up to par, you get what is your value, your worth of your value. Now you get into a position where you now start to check the board. And then we start to get involved in the community, get involved in understanding who's in the board, question why there's no diversity. Why don't you understand our culture or who we are? And like I had in a previous episode some time ago when I was talking about the systematic racism, it's very difficult for a person to police an area if they're not from the area, because they won't understand the people. So hence why it is important for us in our case scenarios, in this case scenario, to understand our culture while considering housing. Because we have to be honest, what we've witnessed occur for so many years is once Blacks move to a certain area, whites begin to move out. It's like that's the honest truth. I've witnessed it with my own eyes. I've witnessed that for so many years, to the point that, you know, they do whatever they can to keep the neighborhood at a certain level with a certain demographic, and you know, it's real homogeneous. We see it happen all the time. So what do you both recommend? And I'm putting the floor open. I'm gonna leave it open because that's why I love both of your perspectives, because I'll say that Sandrell is a Baptist preacher, and I'll say that Daniela is a Pentecostal preacher. So, and I love it because you both have phenomenal insight. And you both are right. There's nothing wrong with two people with two perspectives that may be different, but at the end of the day, they both make sense and they can both be utilized. How should we move forward as a community, as a Black community, Hispanic, whatever it is, to end this disparity? Because I know you all mentioned voting, and we've been talking about that periodically throughout this podcast. What do you both recommend for us to move forward to end this disparity within our communities?
I would say we need to align with more realtors such as Sandrell, who not only knows the profession, but knows the community. We need to have more realtors like Sandrell who are experienced, well-knowledge, and help us guide through the process from the showing, from the loan origination. I mean, the works. You get it all with Sandrell. So we need more of those individuals in our community. I would also say we gotta definitely vote for the people that have the interest of the community at heart. We have to do more research, more diligence when it comes to who we put in office. And it's also important that we show up for our commission meetings, especially when they're talking about housing matters.
Right.
We need to be more involved locally. It's also important that we connect statewide to those who are in the Florida House. We also need to connect on a congressional level as well. And I would also say hold HUD accountable. There's a whole list of resources available with housing and urban development, but year after year, they may go untapped because people aren't holding them accountable. But they have a lot of resources, especially when it deals with family and self-sufficiency, which helps people grow into homeownership. So I would say, connect with a realtor who's well knowledgeable, get involved in your local community, connect with your commission meetings, and connect with the federal level to see what resources are there and available to you. And after doing all that, and if you're still looking for more information, at least in Miami-Dade County, there are a host of resources that offer workshops to first-time home buyers, budgeting workshops that are available in person as well as virtually to help guide and navigate you through the process.
Awesome. And we'll definitely be having your information up there so you can provide these resources to our viewers as well, because we do know that we are here to help and provide these resources so nobody's in the dark. And we definitely want to make sure that you get Ms. Pierre's information. Sandrell, it's yours, floor is yours. Please, what do you recommend moving forward as a community? You are actually in the industry, and as we mentioned, you have a lot of insight, experience, and you've been in the industry for over 10 years. So please, if you can provide some feedback as well on how we can move forward to end this disparity within our communities.
So I think I'm going to be parallel to Danielle's point, but on the other side of it, I think one of the best things to do is to become educated about homeownership beyond the purchasing process. I think that's where we have a huge deficit of information, and where a lot of value is lost in our communities, because if you Google home buyer, first time home buyer, anything close to that, you're going to be bombarded with information to tell you where to go find money to buy a house, what program, what class. I mean, oh my God, the realtors, you can find a realtor on every corner. There's a lot of us, out here. But then once you become the actual homeowner, that's where the rubber meets the road. When it comes to even on a local municipal level, what are your responsibilities as a homeowner? What are you subjected to in terms of eminent domain? What should you be doing in order to keep your property, your title free and clear? What can you do to defend your property so that you can be an offensive homeowner and not a defensive homeowner, so that when something happens, you shouldn't be running to the commissioners when you're in trouble as a homeowner.
Right.
You should understand, previous to getting violations on your property and previous to having issues with the municipality, when you're throwing notices away that are coming in the mail that you're not reading, you're not paying any attention to them because you have no idea what they mean. I remember as a renter, I was living in the Brownsville area.
Mm-hmm.
I remember getting zoning notices and throwing them in the garbage like, what is this? It's not a bill, it's in the garbage. Not even giving it a second thought. I remember getting notices when they were bringing in the toll road on I-95. Not even, the meetings were in the middle of the day. I had to go to work. I was not trying to listen to any of that. I was a renter, for God's sake. I was definitely not trying to, because it says like homeowner or resident or something like that, and you're not thinking that applies to you. So I think educating yourself as a citizen first, educating yourself as a homeowner post-purchase is so important, because that is where you get into trouble. That is where defending your wealth and losing value, the value that you worked for 20, 30 years, that's where you see that. You're losing your inheritance.
Wow.
Properties that you're about to inherit that you could have, used to change the entire trajectory of your generation, lost because you didn't know anything about post-purchase. So I think on a local governmental level, you should know where you stand as a property or homeowner. I think on a state level, you should know where you stand as a homeowner. You should know that there's an urban plan in place by your municipality. You should know that there's a developmental plan by the Department of Transportation that's in play in your community right now. You should know those things. You don't have to be a scholar about it. You don't have to know it in depth, but you should know that it exists, so that when you're getting notices in the mail, you're not throwing them away, that you actually think that it's important enough to take off your job for an hour or two to show up to these meetings, because it's going to impact you. It's going to impact your property value. It's going to impact whether or not streets are closed in your community and new roads are opening, or whether your community is going to be shut off and it's going to suck the life out of your community in the next 10 years. You should know that stuff, but we don't, because we're not invested in that part of ownership, because we're so used to fighting just to get in. So we fight so hard just to get in, and when we get in, we think that we've arrived. And that's where I see homeowners getting into the most trouble. I started in real estate through working with investors, but my biggest job in real estate prior to me being licensed was with HUD. So I was working with a HUD contractor. So I saw FHA foreclosure. So everybody's telling you to go get this first time home buyer program, and you can put 3.5% down, and you don't know what that comes with. Yes, I started seeing that. I started seeing the backside of that. So when I see people that are trying to rush and get into a home, and they're coming, they want to get qualified because, I'm a loan officer, and they just want to get qualified, and it's on their vision board, and they want to be a homeowner, but they don't understand what it takes to stay a homeowner. I have problems with that. And if I'm working with you and I'm educating you and you're not hearing me, and you just want to become a homeowner and be in a house that you can't afford, I will not work with you. I will not accept you as a client, because those are not the kind of clients that I want to have as homeowners, so that they could turn around and be calling me because they need a short sale, some sort of modification, because they need an exit plan.
Right.
Because I don't want my buyers to be in those situations. So I won't work with everybody, because it's important to me that you actually get the value you need out of home ownership. It's not just about, the ability to say that you did it. It's the ability to say that you did it and you were able to use it to your advantage, because that's what it's used for. So I think that in terms of our community, that's what we need to learn. We need to learn how to leverage a property so that we're not holding on to a property even when we're in financial trouble, until it drags us down to the bitter end and it's killing our mental health and our emotional health. I think it's so important to know when to cut off the cord, leverage your property, get out, so that you can fix it and get back in if you need to be a homeowner. So as a community, I think that education post ownership is very important. And that's where I think we'll kill a lot of the disparities.
Awesome. And honestly, you made so many valid points. I hope everybody paid attention to this, because we are meeting the needs of everybody at every capacity. We would like everybody to become homeowners, but not only become homeowners, retain, keep your property, keep your legacy, keep your investment, and allow your investment to grow. Furthermore, keep and build a legacy for your children and your children's children. As we heard it tonight, educate yourself. Make sure you are a part of the plan. And I want to thank you both for being here with us tonight on this Qualified podcast. I'm elated, I'm humbled, and I definitely want to have you both back again so we can speak more on this, because this is an ongoing topic that, you know, we can't stress enough how vital it is that our communities are aware of what it is that they need to know in order to maintain or make purchases, but maintain their purchases or their investment and do it successfully. Definitely a pleasure to have you both again. And we definitely look forward to more episodes with you both and to discuss what it is that's going on. And I just want to tell every viewer here, as you have all of the information you need, you heard what you heard. You may listen to this podcast tonight. Go back and listen to it again. You may have missed something because the information that was shared tonight is pertinent. And just be mindful that no matter where you're from, no matter what you've encountered, no matter what has been said about you, you are the chain breaker. You are the generational curse destroyer. You are going to be the first time home buyer. And not only that, you're going to keep and retain your property, keep your investments, as mentioned here tonight. And as we are signing off, we just want to let you know that we appreciate each and every one of you who tuned in tonight to this actual episode. And just want to remind everybody, no matter where you are, no matter where you've been, you are still qualified to win. Have a great night.
Good day to all my family and friends. Dr. G here. Listen, I can't thank you enough for all of the support, all of the kind words, all of the encouragement you've given us. You all keep me motivated. You all keep us going. Don't forget to visit drgeorgefabre.com. Again, drgeorgefabre.com. You can purchase our merchandise. You can purchase our books. You could even book me for any of your upcoming events. If you want a speaker for any speaking engagements, if you need a host for any of your bar mitzvahs, weddings, any gala, I'm there at your disposal for all of your needs. More importantly, we thank you. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share our YouTube channel, Qualified Podcast. We thank you and we appreciate you for all that you've done, and we can't say it enough. No matter where you are, no matter what you've been through, this is not a cliche, but we're just reminding you that you are still qualified to win.